Hello everyone, it is that greatest of all days, it is New Gear Day. Today I am unboxing a couple of mics that I have been saving up for basically all year. These are the Austrian Audio OC818. It is in the Dual Set Go that they just released over Black Friday. And I am super psyched to see these. Great. Very cool box pull that they've got. Makes it very easy to get out. Here is the Dual Set Go. It is the cheaper version of their Dual Set. Their Dual Set typically comes with the spider shock mounts and a stereo bar and a hard case. This is the slightly more affordable version. So you still get the two mics, but instead of the hard case, they come in this case. And I have to say, just holding it in my hands, that it is actually quite substantial. It's not a soft case. It's kind of a semi-rigid case. It's not obviously as nice as their Dual Set Go case is, or their Dual Set Plus, which is the higher end one. But this is plenty substantial for the price decrease. So inside, we've got the two windscreens, the two standard mounts for this. Of course, the two OC818s. And just holding these are so substantial feeling. They're so heavy. And the internal mounting just looks fantastic. So that's great. Let's pull the other one out here. Same deal, just beautiful looking mics. These are very interesting in that they are dual capsule, so you can actually record out of both sides. That's what this extra little 5-pin XLR is. There's a little port on the back, and if you pull that port open, you can see there's a 5-pin XLR jack. That's so you can record both capsules at the same time. You can do some really interesting things in post with those as well, including changing the polar pattern after the fact. And if you have two in a concurrent pair, you can use their stereo designer plug, and you can actually change even the orientation of the mics after the fact, which is wild. So we've got a quick start guide here, a couple stickers, and the quality certificate of the person who personally inspected it. These are all hand assembled in Austria, which is great. So what I'd really like to do now is plug these in, and just very quickly we're going to compare them to a cheaper condenser mic that I have. I, of course, also have a Shure SM7B, but that is a dynamic mic. It's not the same technology. So really want to just show you what you get when you get a more expensive condenser. Obviously, sounds are going to be a little bit similar, but some of the features are going to be very different. So let's plug this in and let's see. All right, so now that I've got one of these hooked up, I just wanted to very briefly talk to you about some of the differences that you can expect between a cheaper versus a more expensive condenser microphone. This is the Audio-Technica AT2035 up here on top. I've been using these things for years. They sound wonderful, and that's what you're hearing right now. I'll just very briefly do some stuff with some S's so you can hear what those sound like. All right, now let's switch to the OC818. Now let's do some stuff with some S's, and you can immediately hear that there's a little bit of a difference, right? It handles the S's a lot better. It's EQ'd a little bit differently, and even though the differences are subtle, they become much more apparent as you add processing, as you are compressing, as you are saturating, etc. And the more processing you're doing, the more noticeable the differences are going to be. The OC818 has lower self-noise in it, so you have a lower noise floor overall. One thing that you can also kind of check, I see this is really well mounted inside here, so I bet if I tap on the 2035, we're going to hear, I would imagine, all sorts of noise. And all I'm doing is tapping on the hard parts of that mic. Now let's do the same thing. Let's tap on this one. And that's going to be a whole lot quieter. I can just tell already. We already talked about the dual output, which is something that's fairly unique to this mic. I only know of a couple other mics that are doing that, which are the UA Sphere and the Lewitt 640 that has a dual output. But something else you're going to find, especially on a lot of higher end mics, is multiple polar patterns. And you can see there's a switch here in front for all the different polar patterns, starting from figure 8 and going to hypercardioid, cardioid, omni. And then there's actually a setting here where if you wanted to use this output instead of a dual output, there's a Bluetooth dongle that you can use to control the polar pattern on these mics without even touching them, which can be especially handy if you've got something on an overhead for a drum. You don't really want to adjust it. You've already got something set in position. That's a great feature here. Of course, your roll-off switches, your 0, 40, 80, and 160. This does have a roll-off. It is just at 80. There is a high-pass filter there. It works well, but this one gives you so many more options. It's got no roll-off, 40, 80, and 160. So all the way up to 160, especially if you're doing something like a violin that isn't going to have a fundamental. Below 160, that can really save you some headroom. So all of these things and more, right? Obviously, with getting a more expensive mic, you're getting a more radically different feature set. But again, nothing wrong with this Audio-Technica whatsoever. It's just the OC818s are a level above. One other thing I will mention, though, is longevity. So these are both condensers, but they are condensers using two different technologies. The Audio-Technica is what's called an electret mic, and the OC818 is what's called a true condenser mic. Now the difference is that the electret, the cathode is permanently polarized. So there's an electric charge applied to that, and then that is just kind of permanently there forever, whereas the true condenser relies on active current to polarize its cathode. So what that means is that these electret mics ultimately have a limited shelf life. Now it probably is somewhere around 20 and 30 years if you take care of it really well, maybe even up to 40, but I've already had these for 10 years, so that could be up to half their lifespan already gone as that cathode loses its charge over time. I mean, after 10 years, they're probably, more than a decibel or so off. And that brings me to another point as well, which is the OC818s have such tight manufacturing tolerances. When you think about matching microphones, right, typically that's something that you have to pay for to get two microphones that are in the same response as each other. And normally, when you pay for a matched pair, you're getting into tolerances that are plus or minus a dB, sometimes plus or minus 2 dB, depending on the microphone manufacturer. The OC818s, every single one of these comes out of the factory within 0.5 dB of each other. So you can pick up any of these, and that also includes the OC18, as long as you're keeping this in cardioid mode. They will match perfectly with another one of these, no matter where you bought it or when you bought it, because of those tight manufacturing tolerances. These are all over the place, and like I said, they will lose their charge over time. So that's just a quick summary of some of the things that you can expect if you're buying a more expensive condenser versus a cheaper condenser. Again, sounds are not going to be super duper dramatically different unless you're getting into like a tube microphone or something with some additional saturation on it, but a flat condenser is a flat condenser, right? It's just the feature set that you're getting out of it, some of the more precise tuning on the EQ that makes it a little bit more usable right out of the box. And then once you get into really severe processing, some really intense processing, you're going to start to notice sound differences a little more. But a lot of what you're paying for is just quality control, the design, and the additional features. So thanks for sticking with me through this unboxing and this brief feature set. I hope to do some more videos in the future, specifically about the Stereo Creator and how you can use two mics at the same time and get 4 different outputs and actually reposition the mics in post. So stick with me for that and tune in if that is something that interests you. I'll see you next time.